So Samuel Beckett's Endgame is a one-act play. I think it's in the same vein as the tragicomedy he does with his famous, probably his most famous play, Waiting for Godot. And yeah, it's a lot darker than that, if you could believe it, through my ends at least the process of reading it, because I think there's a little bit more with Godot. A little bit more kind of levity with like the kind of witty back and forth between what was it kind of, I can't remember the character's name, but yeah, with Endgame it's a lot it's morbid to an extent. It opens up with a lot of, there's a lot of different, through, I think it's the way it's set up, it's, it's a play, so it's obviously not totally out of my kind of knowledge of like what's going on with like a one act play and how it's set up in the character, in the stage setting and all that, and how the lighting and everything. But my guess is it's kind of minimal. It only has, I think, 4 characters, and it starts off with Clove, the main, probably not the main character, but it's a family. It's almost like it's a family comedy, but it starts out with Clove, and he's the caretaker to Ham. And he's basically trying to he's like it starts off with like kind of a very weird, eerie, kind of portentous kind of thing that he says, which is basically just, it's all gonna end soon or something like that, hence the title of the Endgame. And it, yeah, an act without words, that's actually a different thing, that's why it's a lot of but it's very terse the way he talks. It's just like, it's all gonna end soon, and he has like a blood covered handkerchief, and it's not really implied like what's going on. It is very obvious that Ham is suffering and that he's old, but you don't really feel all that bad for him because he's so cantankerous and he's so spiteful and hateful at the same time that you're like, you can't, like, at least I didn't feel much, if any, empathy for him. It's like he was so it's one of those things, like, I'm not sure if it's like kind of like one of the characters from To Kill a Mockingbird, where I can't remember her name, but she was it was revealed that at the end that she actually had all these, she actually, I don't know if she had a stroke or something, but she was suffering from a kind of, really painful disease that made it, I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, oh well, maybe at the end of it it's one of those things where it's complicated to how much leeway I should give this character for being so, miserly and and awful towards people around him. And that's exactly what he is. Ham, mistreats Clove, and Clove is basically destined to get out of there. Like, he's trying to, and that's why it's like Endgame. It's insinuating multiple different things. There's like an array of different meanings that you could draw from that. One of them being, it could be, him ending his job there, him ending his commitment to Ham. It could be him ending his life. That's another thing. Death is a big thing with Beckett, as you can glean from this, especially. A little bit like the way with Waiting for Godot, it was thrown in there, kind of like, it's like, maybe we shouldn't stop waiting for him. Like, maybe we should tie our shoes or untie our shoes. I'm not saying that actually happened, but maybe we should kill ourselves or like hang ourselves or something. It's like kind of like the absurd. The theater of the absurd is like what Beckett pioneered, and even though this is only my 3rd Beckett work, I believe, 1 novel and 2 plays, I think I've through that and some interviews and some other kind of video essays or whatnot on him, that combined, I can get an image of somebody who's not nihilistic but realistic. I think, like, one of his friends, I think, said something effective like, what do you think is a good day today, right, Sam? And he was just like, I wouldn't go that far, a little bit like, it reminds me a little bit of Emil Cioran, I think, the Romanian author who, The Trouble with Being Born is a book of aphorisms too that I would like to review sometime. And as far as kind of just my, I hate to use the word, but my vibe of that book was kind of just a little bit on the negative side, but it's just the way things are. It's just, I'm not huge on just the straight, nothing but kind of just like rejection of the whole pessimism is a little bit too much for me, and his it came off as a little bit more distasteful, I think. And you can understand because his friend, one of Chorin's friends, passed away, and that was kind of like prompted him to write that. And there's a lot of it's witty and pretty starkly beautiful at the same time, and some of his writings, but then it's just a little bit too much, a little bit too morbid, I'd say. But with this, I think it's like a good balance between realism and kind of a rejection of kind of any teleological end goal. There is no end goal to any of this. It's like what basically partway through, Ham's parents show up, and they're in the other side of the play, and they're both in dustbins. And they're just come out of these dustbins, and they, hence the cover here, you can see them, and their names are Nag and Nell. Nag is the, I believe, the father of Ham, and Nell is the mother. And the former, Nag, he is, despite the name, he actually, or maybe it's just in Ham's mind, he's a bit of a nag, but maybe, I don't know if he meant it to just be kind of an onomatopoeia, or what Beckett's initial intention were. I know he's Irish, so there's a lot of, you see some of his early stuff reflects and mirrors a lot of, like, James Joyce's stuff, especially, but he also moved around a lot, and I think, he wrote parts of this, I think, in French, or he lived in France for some time, and I think, but I'm gonna have to, do a little bit more research on him, obviously. But yeah, there was a lot of kind of that biting wit that you find in, kind of. But it's I'm not sure, because Nag is I don't think he's meant to be irritating. He's just he's actually quite convivial and upbeat, and he's like one of the few characters that are actually kind of let me see if I can find some. Yeah, so you get, like, what shall I tell you, the story of the tailor, Nell's like, no, and Nag's like, to cheer you up. It's not funny. It always made you laugh the first time. So you get that he's trying to at least try to make an attempt to kind of brighten things up, especially for his wife. And he is very aggravated, openly so, about his son, Ham, and, like, the way he treats other people. So, and then there's other things, like, there's a thing I thought was darkly funny to an extent, to some a degree, was the fact that in the outside world, nothing is everything is insinuated to be, like, bleak and like, as if it, like, it's almost like apocalyptic, almost, in a sense. Like, you just see, like, it's glimpses of it, like, every now and then. I'm sure, like, I'd love to eventually one of these days, like, just sit down and watch, like, a stage. I'm sure there's plenty of stage productions you can probably find online, some kind of archive. But yeah, I'd say I'd imagine that the stage setup's probably mirrored that kind of bleak attitude in, like, in the book when it's saying, like, there's nothing outside, like, there's nothing, it's just desolation. So I thought that was kind of a little bit funny, but obviously depressing as well. But yeah, it's Nell and Nag, they're both they both trying to put up, kind of like they're arguing. You can just sense that there's, like, a bit of, like, not a blame game going on about, like, the way Ham turned out, but, like, a little bit of a comical kind of, like, she said, he said kind of thing going on that you got with again, kind of echoing a little bit, but Waiting for Godot too, with, like, they're back and forth too. Like, there's, like, a kind of, like, almost Two Stooges, really, in this case. But yeah, it's so Clove is basically towards the end. Ham is still suffering and still kind of cursing everybody. Obviously, spoilers. I've already spoiled kind of what's going on this far, so might as well tell you the whole thing. So, but yeah, there's towards the end, it's back to that kind of that portending at death, kind of like the end is near, and he, I think Clove puts him back in his wheelchair, and he's, like, kind of puts him back off in the dark, and then puts the blood again. You know, like that symbol, classic symbol, like the red, stark red blood of just, in the play. That's one thing I did see, is like the blood uses very, like, almost comically red, like not in the way that you'd imagine, but like just very, like some kind of crimson red, kind of almost fire truck red. And that's kind of just alluding, obviously to his Ham's dying off, and that it's kind of insinuated that he's gonna die. So, yeah. So Samuel Beckett. Forgot to say when this was the late 50s, just to put some context, and not to say that it entirely matters all that much when it came out, but in some sense, post-war, you get the idea, kind of theater of the absurd, like a lot of people were. Along with existentialism, there might be a bit of a false parallel that I'm drawing there, but my sense is that existentialism and kind of the absurd go hand in hand in a way. But a lot of this kind of reminded me a bit of like Kafka or Albert Camus or some of Sartre's plays, and I keep reusing those early examples because I've just been reading a lot more of their stuff. But yeah. Off the top of my head, that's all I can really think of. But yeah, if I'm missing anything, which I probably am, just let me know. And thank you for watching. Thanks.